check out ESPN Film's newly released 30 for 30 podcast. From the producers of our award-winning documentary series, this is an amazing collection of sports stories you need to hear to believe. Speaking of amazing, Delta Airlines and the Fly Delta app make your travel experience amazingly easy with real-time bag tracking, e-boarding, and passport scanning during check-in. And don't forget to download 30 for 30 podcast to fill your flight with stories that will keep you coming back for more.
This is the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I'm Stephen A. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you, as I love to do every weekday, over the airwaves of ESPN Radio. That's 98.7 FM New York City. It's 710 ESPN LA, and of course nationwide over the airwaves of ESPN Radio, Sirius XM style, Channel 80. Number to call up as always is 866-729-3776. That's 866-729-ESPN, 866-SAY-ESPN. We all know what the story is today. Got a bevy of NFL games to get into, which we will definitely. College football playoffs, top 4 teams in the nation. We know all of that, okay? We know all of that. But the story right now is the fact that the New York Giants, one organization that's highly respected in the National Football League, has decided to absolutely clean house. They fire Coach Ben McAdoo. They fire GM Jerry Reese. And obviously, both deserved it. I'm sad for Jerry Reese because I genuinely like him as a person, but the bottom line is that, I mean, how many years does somebody have to tell you to get a damn offensive line to protect Eli Manning, who is as immobile as a snail with arthritis, and snails don't have arthritis. They don't get arthritis. I mean, but that's how slow he is, metaphorically speaking. That's the only thing that I could come up with to essentially justify and highlight what this man is lacking. He's lacked an offensive line. He's lacked speed and mobility, and because of that, it elevates the importance of an offensive line, one that Eli Manning has never, ever had. Okay? The same Jerry Reese. Consider this. The man inherited a team that ultimately won a Super Bowl. They ultimately won a Super Bowl years later, but only 10 of Reese's 43 picks from 2010 to 2015 remain on the team. Folks talk about his refusal to this offseason to upgrade the offensive line. One writer, Pat Leonard of the New York Daily News, labeled it malpractice. That's how bad it was. Because Jerry Reese kept his offensive line intact from last season coming into this year. And by the way, Pat Leonard can't find anybody to disagree with him after watching the Giants this year. We all know what time it was. Reese got spared a couple of years ago when Tom Coughlin was shown the door. And back then you had a whole bunch of people saying he should have gone, because how the hell are you going to say, as an organization, we need to clean house? Something needs to change because things have gone awry. And the only person that ends up walking out the door is Coach Tom Coughlin. It was never right. It always smelled. And so on this day, when Jerry Reese is being fired, I cannot disagree. And you're talking to an individual that consistently goes about the business of trying to bring attention to the issues of the paucity of African Americans, particularly in executive positions. But I have to confess, Jerry Reese deserved this. Fair is fair. But nothing, nor anyone, deserves to be shown the door quicker than Ben McAdoo. What an atrocity. What an atrocity. I understand they went to the playoffs last year. This dude was petrified of disciplining Odell Beckham Jr. He never hesitated to throw Eli Manning under the bus. Sometimes in press conferences, I mean, 1 minute you won't answer questions. The next minute you refuse to answer questions. I mean, you're dumbfounded, speechless, inefficient, ineffective, and damn near incompetent. A matter of fact, according to a couple of sources, I've been told a couple of players looked Ben McAdoo in the face and told him, you don't know what the hell you're doing. And then to add ineptitude to further ineptitude, this dude goes and he benches Eli Manning in favor of Geno Smith. Everybody know Geno ain't the future. And by the way, I watched them yesterday against the Oakland Raiders. It wasn't an awful game by Geno Smith, but my God, you still don't have any pocket presence? You still can't feel somebody coming at you? You still lack that, huh? Holding on to the ball all day, huh? I'm so surprised. I'm so surprised. And I'm not trying to excoriate Geno Smith. It's not like he's a scrub. He just ain't that dude. He's just not. He's just not. But that's who Ben McAdoo decided to bench Eli Manning, bringing to an end 210 consecutive starts. And his title is the Iron Man of the NFL. Bringing all of that to a tumultuous halt because of Geno Smith. I mean, Ben McAdoo's a new fool. I've joked around his wannabe chubby Pat Riley self because of the slick back hair. Pat Riley's smart enough not to wear them damn shades. I mean, when you would think, ladies and gentlemen, that you would know as a head coach, when the words incompetent and efficient become associated with your name and people are questioning what the hell you're watching and what the hell you're seeing, that you would know better than further impeding your vision in front of everybody by wearing those ridiculous damn shades. But that's what Ben McAdoo did. Everywhere you turned, this team was just atrocious. The quarterback had regressed. The passing game was virtually non-existent because of it. The running game has never been in existence. The offensive line is horrid. And all of this came after Ben McAdoo had you in the top 10 in back-to-back years as an offensive coordinator. He gets the head coaching job, and look what he did. He never tickled anybody's fancy. He never sat up there and resonated with anybody. See, when I think about things, I think about a coach, and sometimes you question their ability, and sometimes you wonder about their ability because can you stop the bleeding? As a head coach, you are an overseer, which means you get to dip your fingers in everything. I look at a guy like Anthony Lynn with the Chargers, and I say, damn, at once upon a time, I thought the Chargers were left for dead. I thought they were done. I thought they were finished. Another season, incapable of winning close games. What the hell is going to happen to this team? That's what I thought. But then lo and behold, in the midst of stinking up the joint and leaving everybody to wonder what the hell was this team made of after an 0-4 start, they won 6 of their last 8 games. And remember, they lost to Jacksonville 20-17 in overtime. They could have easily won 7 of their last 8 games. And they're in position to win the AFC West. Can you stop the bleeding? That's what Anthony Lynn essentially has done. Damn sure can't say that about Ben McAdoo. Giants went from bleeding to hemorrhaging. And it got so bad, you had brothers who wanted him to bleed. Players who wanted him to bleed. The New York Giants have regressed to an atrocity. And it's been under Ben McAdoo's watch. Somewhere along the way, Tom Coughlin would have been laughing if it had not been for them benching his boy Eli Manning and disrespecting him in the way that he did. But nevertheless, that's what happened. And here we are sitting here today, recognizing the Giants, their regression, and for the embarrassment that they have become. 2-10 on the season. And by the way, getting worse and worse by the day. Started out 0-5, won a game, then lost their next 3, then lucked up and beat Kansas City. I don't know what the hell is going on in Kansas City with Andy Reid's team, losing 6 of their last 7 games after starting out 5-0. But that's a different story for another day. I told y'all about Alex Smith. Told you. Even though it wasn't his fault they lost the other day. But I regress. The point is, you're the New York Giants. This is the right move. Getting rid of your general manager, getting rid of your head coach, and positioning yourself with the time necessary to get their successors in place so you can decide what you're going to do with Eli Manning. You're going to trade him? You going to waive him, or you going to hold on to him and draft a quarterback and give him a year to develop before you insert him as the successor to Eli Manning? What direction are you going to go in if you're the New York Giants? Inquiring minds want to know, and obviously even more want to speculate about it.
Give Stephen A. piece of your mind.
He is sorry.
Call him weekdays from 1 till 3 Eastern.
I mean, just trash.
At 866-729-3776.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I'm so happy, I feel like I can fly.
Disclaimer, you will not be able to fly by switching to Geico. This is against the laws of physics and nature. If you find yourself flying, please seek professional and or medical help immediately. In the unlikely event you find yourself flying, you might be a superhero, or a pigeon, or a superhero named Pidgewoman, who was bitten by a radioactive pigeon. If you are indeed Pidgewoman, Geico retains all licensing publishing rights in the event Pidgewoman the movie becomes a top-grossing Hollywood blockbuster.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
At some point during the show today, we'll discuss the LeVar Ball rule that's being that's being enforced by the Los Angeles Lakers. I'll explain as the show progresses today. Of course, we're going to carry the press conference of owner John Mara for the New York Giants to start off hour number 2. He'll be calling to explain or having a press conference to explain the firings of McAdoo and Jerry Reese, general manager, as well as Eli Manning returning to the starting lineup after being benched last week in favor of Geno Smith. Eli Manning will return to the starting lineup this Sunday. He will be quarterbacking the New York Giants against Dallas Cowboys, I believe. 866-729-ESPN. It's 866-SAY-ESPN. To the phones we go. Dennis in Jersey, you're live with Stephen A. Talk to me.
How you doing, Stephen A?
I'm good.
Good. I'm going to start off. I'm not a Giants fan. I'm actually a Dallas Cowboy fan living in New Jersey. But
okay.
My family, long time season ticket holders. You know, I just feel like the Maras and the Tishes are kind of getting a little bit of a pass. I believe the fans, with their protest this weekend about staying out into the parking lot,
right.
Once again, the PR machine of the New York Giants has fallen on their face.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about the dollars. I mean, we can go back to Mark Navarro. We could go back to PSLs with the stadium. And this is just another event. And believe me, McAdoo and Reese, I believe, have to go. But it just seems to me that they have that cushion.
Okay.
Between
them. Let me explain. My producer just said the same exact thing to me. He actually beat you to it. I understand those feelings. Do you know why I don't focus on that too much? What owner do you know is going to fire themselves? Think about it.
Yeah.
Mara and Tish, where they going?
Where
absolutely. Where they go? Listen, do you realize that you could boycott the Giants right now, right? You can boycott them right now. You can affect their bottom line, and everything would change but the ownership. You realize that?
Oh, I realize that.
And that's the whole point. So their ownership, they've dropped the ball. They've compromised their integrity and their brand for what we've known the Giants to be all of these years. They should be ashamed of themselves. They've got a lot of explaining to do. All of that is true. But in the end, just say it understanding that anything that you have to say is nothing more than words, because they're not going anywhere. As long as you understand that, I'm fine.
I totally understand it. I don't mind them getting hit in the pocket, though. I like
that's
that.
Fair. That's fair.
It sounds like they don't want to resell the tickets. They're going to stay in the parking lot. They're going to tailgate. They're going to do all that stuff. But who I do feel bad are those guys that have to go to work inside the stadium if they get hit in the pocket.
Listen, it's a bad year, but let's be clear. It's not like they're the New York Knicks, who haven't won a title since 1973, man. You understand? Who spent about a decade stinking up the joint. The fact, and we all know how most folks feel about the Knicks since Dolan has taken over from his daddy in 1999. But the point is because the Giants were in the playoffs last year. But the point is that Ben McAdoo does not represent what this franchise is about. Jerry Reese, God bless him, I'm sure he tried, but he is no Ernie Accorsi. That's just a fact. And so when you look at it from that perspective, that cannot be ignored. I got to run, Dennis. Take it easy. Matt in Jersey, you're live with Stephen A. What's up?
Hey, Stephen A. I just had a quick thought and playing a little bit of devil's advocate. But watching the Giants game yesterday, it almost seems like Geno Smith was a better choice than Eli Manning because the O-line is so bad that I didn't see the numbers, but it looks like there's less than a second to get that ball off. And Geno was able to run around and get out of the pocket a little bit. Eli Manning would have got crushed.
All right, well, let me respond to that. That's a very valid point. That can't be dismissed. But you have to understand, when you walk into the game 2-9, your season is clearly over. It's not about whether or not Geno may be a little bit better for the franchise than Eli Manning. It's about the fact that the franchise is clearly going in a different direction and trying to move into the future. Wholesale changes are imminent. You don't send that message or tease about sending that message and then give New Yorkers a guy they saw in a different uniform but playing in the same city in the same stadium and stinking up the joint when he did. You don't do that. Had you gone the route of Webb and you decided that I want to find out what Webb is made of, knowing he may not even compare to Eli Manning, that makes more sense. Unless you're trying to tell New Yorkers we are entertaining Geno Smith being the quarterback of the future for the New York Giants. There's no way in hell the Giants would say that. And since that's not what you would say, what the hell you put him in the starting lineup for in place of Eli? That's the issue, Matt.
I hear you. Yeah, that's what I figured too. But just if they were still trying to win, that's the way I was looking at it.
I got you. I appreciate the call. Makes sense, though. Thank you. Jim in L.A., you're live with Stephen A. What's up?
Hey, Stephen A. Listen, I'm going to agree with caller one, but put it in a different way.
Sure.
I've been a Giants fan since the days of Y.A. Tittle.
Okay.
If I asked you to name the top three organizations in the NFL, would you disagree with me if I said New England, Green Bay, and Pittsburgh?
New England, Green Bay, and Pittsburgh. I would disagree with you about Green Bay because I'm not sold on Ted Thompson and Mike McCarthy. I think they've wasted away the best years of Aaron Rodgers.
Saying over the past 30 years. I've been a football fan for 40, 50 years. On average.
Okay.
The Giants aren't in that group, and they are, and you gotta. I'm gonna save my. I know I can't force the ownership to quit, but I'm saving my criticism right now for them. McAdoo's an easy target. He's a complete failure, and poor Jerry Reese has got to go too. But the brunt of my criticism lies with the ownership, who failed to excel. They could have modeled themselves after the great organizations in football, and they haven't. And this is the result.
Well, I will say this, though. When you have organizations, you got to remember, Dallas Cowboys got 5 Super Bowl championships. You got the Steelers got 6. You got San Francisco. You've got New England. You know, you've got a bevy of franchises that have won championships. Once upon a time, you'd put the Giants up there with what they've done since the 80s. That just isn't the case now. It's pretty damn sad, but it is what it is. Jim, I got to run. I appreciate the call. 866-ESPN. It's 866-729-3776. We'll get back to your calls on the Giants. We'll scour the NFL as well. Remember, owner John Mara is having a press conference at top of hour number 2 to discuss the firing of Coach Ben McAdoo along with GM Jerry Reese. Also, I have a few things to say about Rob Gronkowski, Tom Brady, and their behavior yesterday in that win over the Buffalo Bills. Here's a warning. You're probably not going to like what I have to say, but I don't care. 866-ESPN. More to Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio in a minute.
Guess what? You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it!
Before we go back to the phones, right here on the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio. The New England Patriots won a game yesterday, 23-3 over the Buffalo Bills. The game itself, the outcome itself, did not gain headlines the way that Rob Gronkowski and his hit on Tre'Davious White for the Buffalo Bills gained headlines. Nor did Tom Brady and his dust up on the sidelines with offensive coordinator Josh McDaniel gain headlines either. In the case of Tom Brady, I'm not casting any aspersions on him. He's a 5-time champion, arguably the greatest who's ever played. You're allowed to get emotional, be on the sidelines, and feel the way that you feel. He didn't do anything wrong. So what? He got emotional. So what? He got upset. So what? He reacted the way that he reacted to whatever it was that he had a problem with with his offensive coordinator, Josh McDaniel. It happens in the heat of competition. But what if Cam Newton had done that? What if Russell Wilson had done that? What if any black quarterback had done that? Would y'all shove it aside as just them being them? And let me not even get started with Rob Gronkowski. You're getting upset because of holding and all of this other stuff. Tre'Davious White, I don't know whether he blocked the pass or intercepted it. I don't recall. All I do know is that he was on the ground, face first, and Rob Gronkowski came up behind him while he was laying down and put the full weight of his body with his elbow leading into the back of Tre'Davious White's neck and came crashing down upon him. Now, there is no doubt that Rob Gronkowski is going to get suspended for that. Applause to Coach Bill Belichick for searching out Sean McDermott, the coach for the Buffalo Bills, shaking his hand, giving him a hug, and apologizing to him, and telling him that what Rob Gronkowski did was BS. They caught it on the microphone when they met at midfield to shake hands after the game. Bill Belichick told Sean McDermott that. Fine. Rob Gronkowski deserves to be suspended. We all know that. I say minimum 3 games because Tre'Davious White was concussed because of that cheap shot hit. Worst player of the year as far as I'm concerned. Straight garbage. But I ask the question again. Had that been a black dude that conducted themselves in that way, what would y'all have said? As I said on First Take this morning, they don't just call me Stephen A. They call me Screaming A. There's no doubt I'm loud. I can get loud. No question. Guilty as charged. Most of the time I'm talking like the dudes in the barbershop, or I'm talking like the dudes at the barbecue hanging out with the fellas. We just going back and forth, swinging verbally, etc., etc. But I'm Screaming A. Y'all haven't heard any white dudes yelling before? Being a bit demonstrative before? Expressing themselves in something a bit more high octane than mellow fashion? No pun intended regarding Carmelo Anthony. Never heard that before, huh? And oh, by the way, they're passionate. I'm angry. Get the picture? Just something that needs to be said. See, ladies and gentlemen, the objective is consistency. It's not telling, in the case of Rob Gronkowski, no, that's more than that. It's about, damn it, you don't need to be acting like a hooligan and doing something like that. Fair enough. No doubt. But I got to tell you something. Take Rob Gronkowski, because his actions are egregious and ain't no place for it whatsoever. In the case of Tom Brady, I happen to think that's really none of our business. I happen to think that Tom Brady really didn't do anything wrong. He really didn't. All I'm saying is that the furor that's absent in this equation that as it pertains to him raised my eyebrows. Because had that been Cam Newton, Lord knows what we would have said about him. We made a big deal about him the other day when he was jumping up and down when Ron Rivera wasn't willing to go for it on a 4th and 1 initially. And Ron Rivera's like, don't do that. Don't do that. But it was everybody else that was making a big deal about it. His maturity level, he's really got to get it together. He's got to control his emotions, et cetera, et cetera. Had let folks go on further, we would have been talking about anger management issues. But not Tom Brady. No, never that. Never that. When there have been many occasions in his career where he did exactly what he did with Josh McDaniels yesterday. Remember that time Bill O'Brien, former offensive coordinator for the New England Patriots, now the head coach, formerly head coach of Penn State, now the head coach with the Houston Texans. Remember when he was the offensive coordinator with the New England Patriots? Remember when Tom Brady tried to talk to him like that and they had to be restrained to the point where Bill Belichick had to tell him to knock it off because Bill O'Brien wouldn't back down? Because Tom Brady came at him like that. No, it's just Tom being Tom. Again, I have no problem with Tom Brady. I have no problem with what he did. You're in the workplace, you're on the football field, you're in the heat of competition. Stuff like that happens. We got our colleague at ESPN LA and Keyshawn Johnson, former New York Jet, former Dallas Cowboy, former member of the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. NFL analyst now. Hosted Morning Drive in LA. Do I have to get into what y'all would have said about him had that been him on the sideline? Absolutely nothing wrong with Tom Brady and what he did. But would you have treated it in the same fashion? Just a rhetorical question, because we all know the answer. We always do, don't we? 866-729-3776. That's 866-SAY-ESPN. More to Stephen A. Smith Show. Close out hour number 1 in a minute. You're listening live to Stephen A. on ESPN Radio.
Want to be a part of the show? Hit Stephen A. up weekdays from 1 to 3 Eastern at 866-729-3776.
Guess what?
You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it!
Just a few minutes away from John Mara, owner for the New York Giants, having a press conference to explain why Ben McAdoo and general manager Jerry Reese have been unceremoniously dismissed from the New York Giants as the coach and GM respectively, with 4 games still remaining in their 2017 regular season. In more than 40 years, the Giants have not fired a coach during the season. So this is definitely setting a new precedent, no doubt about that. But there's no way to escape the fall from grace that the Giants of an organization have suffered from. It's not just about losing games. It's about how you carry yourself, how you look along the way. This organization where you got Ben McAdoo throwing Eli Manning under the bus, same organization gave a pass to Odell Beckham Jr. when he was messing around in their eyes. Same organization that gave a pass to kicker Josh Brown, who served a 1-game suspension at the start of last season because of domestic violence issues revealed by his ex-wife. Ultimately, the NFL stepped in upon further review, an extensive examination, and, of course, the court of public opinion, and suspended him another 6 games for domestic violence accusations. So this is where we are. One of the things I want to get into later on in the show is Malcolm Jenkins, linebacker for the Philadelphia Eagles. That player's not the players' union, but the players' coalition that were negotiating with owners to get money for causes pertaining to African-American issues. $89 million was the price tag. That's what came with it. He's being called to sell out because of it. He had a response, and we'll make sure we give it its just due and talk about that a little bit later on in hour number 2. But let's get back to the phones before John Mara comes on with his press conference. 866-SAY-ESPN. Let's go to Ronell. You're live with Stephen A. What's up?
Hey, how you doing, man? I agree with the firing of McAdoo in the GM, but I don't say I agree putting Eli Manning back in the start unless he's in there for like a half and letting Davis Webb come in and see what he got. Right now, they're sitting at the 2nd overall pick in the draft, a draft that is a lot of good quarterbacks coming out, and they need one. You know, if it happened to Peyton Manning, it could happen to Eli Manning or anybody else. So they definitely have to get a really good GM to really maneuver that well. But Eli Manning himself said he didn't mind starting and coming off. So I think the Giants should go with that route, and I appreciate the call.
Well, I appreciate the call. Thank you so much. I don't know. Listen. You want to bench Eli Manning? Bench him. Just make sure it's for Webb. You want to play him? Play him. So be it. But it can't be, diminishing him in favor of Geno Smith. You just can't do it. You just can't do it. It doesn't work. Doesn't work. Leaf in West Point, you're live with Stephen A. What's up?
Yes, I just moved up to New York, and all the Giant fans are going crazy thinking that they can trade Eli. He has a no-trade clause.
Well,
so I don't know what.
No. They're assuming that it's something he'll sign off on, sir. That you find a deal that he'll sign off on.
Yeah.
They know. Everybody knows he has a no trade clause.
No, he ain't going to do that for them.
Well, he might. He might if they want to send him if they have a deal in place to send him somewhere he'd like to go. Like, for example, if you get an opportunity to reunite with Tom Coughlin in Jacksonville with those young Lions and that defense, with Leonard Fournette running the football for you, etc., Marquise Lee and others catching the football for you, why wouldn't you do that if you're Eli Manning?
Why wouldn't he want to just go test the market himself and pick where he wants?
Well, again, he can pick where he wants, but then again, you have to find a team that's willing to make the deal you want too, and it has to appease the Giants. It's similar to Carmelo Anthony when he had the no trade clause. Yeah, he wanted to go to Oklahoma. He didn't want to go to Oklahoma City. He wanted to go to Houston. Remember that?
Roger.
Carmelo Anthony wanted to go to Houston, but the Knicks were not willing to trade for Ryan Anderson. So because they weren't willing to trade for Ryan Anderson, he had to end up settling to go to Oklahoma City. Yeah, he has a no-trade clause, but they still don't have to trade him where he wants to go. He just gets to sit up there and decide if he doesn't want to go someplace.
So he's stuck in that contract.
Yes, essentially.
All
Appreciate
right.
the call. Take it easy. Mike in Denver, talk to me, man. How you doing?
How you doing, man? Just want to get right to it. Yeah, the Giants did the right thing, man. Just hate to see them go down like that, like you had mentioned earlier. They're one of the classiest organizations that ever been around now. If it happened to the Redskins, the Browns, or something like that, we expect that. But they did the right thing at the right time, but I didn't approve of the way they benched Eli.
Well, who does? Who does? I mean, they shouldn't have dissed him like that, especially for Geno Smith, and that's really where it's problematic, man. Appreciate the call, Mike. Thanks so much. Always appreciate when you call. Let's go to Patrick in Jersey. You're live with Stephen A. What's up?
Hey, what's up, Stephen A? First, let me take a page out of your book and say the disrespect and the unmitigated gall of Giants fans who want Eli gone or think the Giants should draft a quarterback. The Giants' offensive line is the worst thing in the NFL in the last couple of years. They need to draft 2 offensive linemen before they even think about drafting a quarterback. But that's not even why I called. Let me paint this picture for you, because mind you, I'm a Cleveland Browns fan, and there's really nothing worse than being a Cleveland Browns fan. But I feel for my dad because he's sick to his stomach after 50-plus years. He denounced his fandom for the New York Giants, and it's because of Ben McAdoo. And let me paint this picture for you. I think Ben McAdoo either knew or had a pretty good idea even before he made the decision to bench Eli Manning that he was going to get fired after the Raiders game last Sunday. Don't you think all the hate that he has incurred from not only players on his own team, the staff, and the entire Giants community that he said he had this in his mind when he decided to bench Eli Manning. You know what? Let me go out in a blaze of glory. Let me really have the entire New York community spurn me before I get kicked the hell out of here and never come back.
No.
Let me do the unthinkable.
No. Here's what you do. To fall along with your line of thinking, you want me to tell you what's more plausible than that, Patrick? Him deciding that he didn't feel like working the last 4 games of this regular season. So let me do what I can to get fired and get the hell up out of here, because it's not like they're not going to give me my money for the rest of the year.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. But at the same time, he made so many decisions that it seemed like he genuinely just either didn't want to be there or he had something out for this organization.
Well, I just told you that it looked like he genuinely didn't want to be there. I mean, we're all happy he's gone. He might, to make your point, he may end up being happier than all of us. That might be plausible. You might have a point there. I don't think anybody can definitively refute that. Appreciate the call. 866-729-3776 is 866-SAY-ESPN. You are listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio. Remember, owner for the New York Giants, John Mara, is having a press conference to start off hour number 2. We will be carrying some of that live. It's obviously a big story in the NFL right now. The general manager, Jerry Reese, the coach, Ben McAdoo, have been fired with 4 games left in the season. John Mara, the owner for the New York Giants, will explain why in a minute. Stick around. This is the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio.
That's just a sample of what you'll hear on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern on Sirius XM Channel 80 and the ESPN app.
Check out ESPN Films' newly released 30 for 30 podcasts. From the producers of our award-winning documentary series, this is an amazing collection of sports stories you need to hear to believe. Speaking of amazing, Delta Airlines and the Fly Delta app make your travel experience amazingly easy with real-time bag tracking, e-boarding, and passport scanning during check-in. And don't forget to download 30 for 30 podcasts to fill your flight with stories that will keep you coming back for more.
This is the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I'm Stephen A. Press conference for the owner of the New York Giants, Mr. John Mara, has started. We will take it live to you right now. Take it away, guys.
And agreed to talk this morning, which we did. And we agreed that wholesale changes needed to be made to this organization to get us back to the team that we expect to be. And we also agreed that it was pointless to wait any longer to make these changes. I met with Jerry Reese approximately 10:30 this morning. And that's as difficult a meeting as I've ever had. Jerry's been here since 1994. He is homegrown, started out as a part-time scout and rose all the way through the ranks to become our general manager and to become the general manager for 2 Super Bowl teams. I thanked him on behalf of Steve and myself for everything he's done for this organization. I told him that I have no doubt that he will get another shot with another franchise, and that at some point in time I'm going to be answering questions from people about why I got rid of him in the first place. I then met with Kevin Abrams and asked him to serve as our interim general manager for the rest of the season, and if he chooses to be a candidate for the full-time position, Kevin agreed to do that. Then met with Ben McAdoo and thanked him for everything he has done for us, for all of his hard work, for the professional manner in which he's conducted himself. I also feel that he will be a successful head coach at some point in the future. I think he's going to learn from his experience here, and he'll go on and be a successful head coach. Both of these men, contrary to what their public persona is sometimes, have been complete professionals here. They always make decisions looking out for what they believe is in the best long-term interest of the franchise. They never complain about anything. They don't politic around the office. They communicate well with one another, and that's something that I'm very grateful to both of them for. I met with Steve Spagnuolo after these meetings, asked him to serve as the interim head coach and also to be a candidate to be the head coach after the season if he chooses to do so. He agreed to do that. I then met with all the assistant coaches and told them that my expectation is for them to continue to work hard and to get these players ready to play these last 4 games. I told them that I would not put up with any talk in this building about tanking or anything else, that I expected us to go out and try to win these games, and I expected their best efforts to try to get us to do that. In terms of our general manager search, that starts right away. I have asked Ernie Accorsi to serve as a consultant in this process. He's agreed to do that, and so we expect to get started right away on that. Ideally, you'd like to have the general manager in place first before the head coach. That's not always going to be the case, but I think that would be the ideal scenario. So with that, I will entertain some of your questions. I don't think there was any one final straw. I just think that the where we are as a franchise right now, we're 2-10. We've kind of been spiraling out of control here. I just felt like we needed a complete overhaul. I don't think there was any one event or one final act that precipitated that.
How much did the whole Eli situation play in?
Really had no effect whatsoever. 2-10 is 2-10, and obviously the public reaction to that was not pleasant, but that really didn't have any effect on our decision.
John, have you spoken to Steve, and does he intend to go back to Eli as the starting quarterback?
I've spoken to Steve, and he's still trying to come to grips with this whole thing. He wants to talk to his offensive staff, and then he's going to talk to Kevin and myself. Ultimately, it's going to be his decision as to who to play at quarterback.
John, are you embarrassed in general with what's happened to the franchise this season?
Of course I'm embarrassed. 2-10, there's no defense for that, particularly when expectations were so high. And I understand that, listen, we've had a ridiculous number of injuries. It's the first time in my life that I think I sat at a game having to constantly look at the flip card to try to determine who we were playing. But that being said, we still started out 0-5 with relatively healthy roster until that 5th game when all the wide receivers got hurt. So, yeah, I'm embarrassed about that, and that's one of the reasons I'm standing here.
John, are you committed still to a division between personnel and head coaching, or can one person?
My very strong preference is to maintain that traditional separation, but again, I would never say never if the right candidate was there.
Do you regret not intervening? It seems like the plan to move Gino to quarterbacks was not right. You guys are not.
I mean, we were and we weren't. I mean, Ben came up with the plan. I initially signed off on the plan. My hope had been to talk to him to try to have a little more flexibility with it, not have a hard and fast time when he was going to come out of the game. But by then, Eli rightfully had rejected the notion of only starting and playing a half and coming out, and we had issued the statement, and it was just too late at that point.
Did you consider firing Ben
No.
on Wednesday?
No.
You put a statement out 3 weeks ago saying there wouldn't be any changes. So how do you explain 3 weeks later making?
I changed my mind. We changed our minds. I mean, given that all of the events that have occurred, where we are as a franchise right now, and to be honest with you, it became more and more apparent that we were going to have to do something at the end of the season. So we talked after the game and again this morning about why prolong it any longer. Why not just get it done now? I'm very conscious of the fact that 3 of our last 4 games are at home. I was conscious of having lived through it before, of what the reaction was going to be. It also gives us somewhat of a tactical advantage in allowing us to start looking at general managers right now rather than waiting until the end of the season.
John, there was a period of time between, let me rephrase this, were you aware before Ben went to Eli and said, we're going to start and Gino was going to second half, were you aware of that before he actually presented the plan?
That seems to be the focus of everybody's attention right now. And the plan was Ben was going to talk to Eli, tell him that he was going to play the first half, that Gino would play the second half. I signed off on that. But again, my hope was 2 things. One, that I was going to speak to Ben and try to get him to be a little bit more flexible about that, although I do not like interfering with coaching decisions about who's going to play, and I've never done that before. I also, as I said, I think the other day to you guys, was hoping that Eli would be playing so well that it'd be impossible to take him out. In any event, it is where it is, and you ought to stop blaming Ben and Jerry on that. If you want to blame anybody for that, blame me, because I certainly had the power to overrule it if I wanted to. I chose not to do it.
There are reports that Eli will start this week again.
There's no decision, to my knowledge, that's been made on that yet. I assume he'll run it by me before he makes that decision.
John, obviously it's been a coaching decision, but
I'll come back.
do you believe that the coaching staff will keep the promise to give Davis Webb an opportunity at any point?
I'm hopeful that at some point he gets into the game, but right now, to be honest with you, after all this losing, I'm just as focused on trying to win some of these games as anything else. That's a good question, one that we're trying to figure out right now. I was very confident about this roster, as I think most of the people in this room were, heading into this season. I thought it was as talented a roster as we've had here in a long time. We were coming off an 11-5 season. Our defense was basically the same. Our offense was supposed to be better. We had added, some receivers and a couple of tight ends. We were supposed to be better. We got off to a very poor start on offense. Our defense did not play as well as they could have, and then everybody got hurt. It's really, and I've used this expression before, it's really been the perfect storm this year. Everything that could have gone wrong has gone wrong so far this season, and it's just one of those things you have to live through and suck it up and make whatever changes you have to make and go on. Well, it's more where we are as a team right now. It wasn't that specific a thing. Listen, we had pretty much the same offensive line last year, and even though our offense was not particularly, good last year, it was good enough to win 11 games. We thought that group would take a step forward this year, and even now, half of them have gotten hurt, and it's just been an impossible situation. Well, first of all, this particular, Ben and Jerry Reese communicated together very well, and Jerry and I communicated very well together. I usually don't have that much interaction with the head coach because I like that to be the general manager's, because that's always been the way I've done it. Jerry communicated very well with players. One of the things that I liked about him the most is he was not afraid to call a player out when he didn't feel like he was playing up to his potential. And, Ben, I thought communicated pretty well. Listen, I've spoken to players over the past few weeks, a handful of them, to try to get a handle on whether guys were quitting or whether they weren't playing hard, and that was not the message that I got back. That people felt that they still were playing hard. And for most of the season, with an exception of a couple of games that I can think of, I thought guys did play hard. Well, I think that's going to be largely up to the new GM, and we did go through this back in 2007 when Jerry was hired, and we kept most of the people, and I'm not anticipating there being wholesale changes, but again, that's going to be largely up to the new general manager.
John, would you necessarily shy away from hiring a new head coach that maybe didn't have experience going forward?
Not necessarily. It just depends on the candidate. There are a number of new head coaches that are very successful in this league this year, so you can't shy away from them. If you think you have the right guy, you got to go for it.
John, there's an expression, the giant way. How do you tell the fans that you haven't lost your way during this turbulent season?
Well, listen, Bruce, we've had an embarrassing season. I think most people that know me know how painful that is to me, and you know how committed I am to trying to put a winning team back on the field. I know our fans are suffering, but I'm suffering more, I guarantee you that right now. And I have gotten to the point where or we've gotten to the point where we just felt like we had to make wholesale changes, and that's what we've done.
John, for Spags, moving forward, for Spags to be a candidate for the permanent head coaching job, and ultimately, I'm assuming that decision will lie in the hands of who the new GM is?
Well, I mean, Steve and I have the final say on any head coaching decision, but that's going to be largely dependent on what the new general manager has to say, yes.
With Ben, he had one good year, made the playoffs, one obviously very bad year. Where do you think it went wrong for him somewhere in the middle?
As I said, I think it just ended up being the perfect storm for us. We got off to a bad start this year, particularly on offense. Our defense didn't play as well as they played last year. We had leads in a few games that last year they would have held and we would have won the game. They didn't do that early on. Then everybody got hurt. And listen, there are certain guys on this roster that aren't playing as well as they should be playing right now. And, we all bear the responsibility for that.
You say he communicated well, and you talk to guys who say they didn't quit. So I'm missing the point. What is it? Is it just the record, or was there other things?
Our team isn't good enough. It's obviously not good enough. We're 2-10.
John, just a timetable question. Can you expect to hire a new GM before the end of the season?
That's possible. If the right candidate comes along, that's possible. Obviously, if we want to talk to somebody who's currently employed, then we would have to wait.
You don't have names in mind?
We have names in mind, but I'm not going to go into individual names right now.
John, we worried that there was talk about evolution, not revolution. When you look back now, do you regret that? Did there need to be a revolution at that time?
I don't think so. I mean, that's semantics. I mean, I thought he was the right guy for the job. We were 11-5 last year. Everything looked great back in September, and then it's all fallen apart. And we'll obviously hire the best general manager we can and be very guided by what he has to say.
Do you regret not doing this the last 3 months ago? You thought you were going to be heading to the playoffs.
Yes, I have to tell you, I've been around long enough not to get shocked by many things, but I certainly did not see this coming.
Do you regret not doing this last week just to avoid some of the backlash you had?
No.
How do you handle the draft process right now? You're going to have a very important draft pick coming up, and discover you're general manager. If you don't have that new GM in, how do you plan on?
Well, we'll have the GM in long before the draft, and our scouts and Mark Ross, our head of scouting, are going to. It's business as usual for them. They're going to keep doing what they're doing, but that GM will be in place long before the draft.
Was there any thought given considering injuries? Nobody can plan for that, obviously. That's not the head coach's fault. Was there any pause about maybe saying, okay, maybe give Ben another shot, or given some of these things were out of his control?
That certainly was something we considered, but at the end of the day, we still felt like wholesale changes needed to be made. I'll come back to you.
The last time you hired a coach and general manager in the same year was 1979. And I know there was some disagreement between your father and your uncle on the way to go about it, who to hire first. Is it a given here that you will hire the general manager first and you will let him have input, if not final say?
In all likelihood, that'll be the way it occurs, Gary. But I don't ever want to say that there's a guarantee of that. But in all likelihood, that'll be what happens.
And the other question I had, you made references before about 3 of the last 4 games at home. How much of the timing of doing it now rather than waiting until the end of the season plays off of what happened last week and the fan reaction last week, and not wanting to subject Ben to fan reaction, or not wanting to subject your organization to the anticipated fan reaction?
Well, listen, I was certainly cognizant of what the fan reaction was likely to be over the last 4 weeks, but that wasn't the final determining factor. We just reached a point where we felt that, we're going to be making these changes probably at the end of the season, so what's the point in prolonging this any further?
Yeah, I was just curious how your evaluation of leadership, particularly, leaders of men in the locker room and things like that will change and be modified after this particular example.
Well, if I understand your question correctly, listen, I do think we need some more leadership in the locker room for sure, but I think in terms of our priorities as an organization right now, let's go out and find the best general manager, and then let's take it from there.
John, one last one.
When you talk about injuries, obviously the loss of Odell seemed to be devastating.
I mean, I certainly expect him to be a part of this team in the future, but that'll be a discussion also with the incoming general manager, the incoming head coach, and we'll make whatever decision we think is appropriate going forward. One more.
What were Jerry and Ben's reactions? Were either of them shocked?
I don't think either one of them were shocked. I think they could not have been more professional. They both thanked me for the opportunity. I mean, my meeting with Jerry was a little more emotional just because we have a longer history together and because he's meant so much to this organization. I've talked to him a couple of times this morning, and he thanked me for the opportunity that we've given him, for everything we've done for his family. I thanked him for everything he's done here, and that was not an easy meeting for me, and it was not for him either. Okay, thank you.
There you have it. Owner for the New York Giants, John Mara, fired Coach Ben McAdoo, fired General Manager Jerry Reese. The New York Giants are looking for a GM, and that GM, in collaboration with Mr. Mara and Mr. Tisch, the other owner for the New York Giants, will make a decision on who the next head coach for the New York Giants will be unless they find an elite candidate worthy of both positions, which appear to be highly unlikely listening to him. There are other things to peel from what he had to say, including the fact that Steve Spagnuolo is the interim head coach for the remainder of the season, who has also been asked to accept a candidacy for permanent head coaching duties beyond this season. I'll touch on that and more of what Mr. Mara had to say, plus I'll get into Brady Gronkowski, like I touched on, the LeVar Ball rules, and the list goes on and on. Stick around. You are listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio. Back with more in a minute.
Catch the Stephen A. Smith Show live on 98.7 ESPN New York, ESPN LA 710, and Sirius XM Channel 80.
You just can't make this stuff up.
Weekdays from 1 to 3 Eastern.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I've never felt more alive.
Disclaimer. Geico cannot guarantee you will feel more alive. You either possess functioning respiratory and circulatory systems, or you do not, or you are a zombie. If you are indeed a brain-starved zombie and you would like to save money on car insurance, the Geico legal team applauds your excellent life choices, even in your shambling afterlife. But we strongly encourage you to visit geico.com or download the Geico app. Please stay a minimum of 500 feet away from our large and presumably delicious, delicious brains.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Stepping to me. They want to get some, but I'm the king, so no, you know the outcome. Another victory. They can't get with me. So pick a BC date, because your history. Y'all wouldn't know anything about that old school stuff. That's Big Daddy Kane from many, many years ago. 80s style. That's what Stephen A. just brought at y'all. That's what Stephen A. just brought at y'all. 866-729-ESPN. That's 866-SAY-ESPN. You're listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio. Look, I appreciate Mara putting it all on his shoulders, acknowledging that, they couldn't have made certain moves without his approval. You lose Jonathan Hankins, your defensive tackle. You lose Cody Sensabaugh in the offseason because you spent so much money, over $200 million on the defense last year. There was so much that you could do. But the Giants are one of the worst defenses in the league against the run, and they're definitely worse than yards allowed. So the defense is nosedived this particular season. What alarmed me most about what he had to say is, what the hell is Steve Spagnuolo doing being a candidate for the job? I want somebody to explain that to me. I don't understand that. I don't understand how your present defensive coordinator on the New York Giants, I don't understand for the life of me how this guy is a candidate for the head coaching job for the New York Giants. I guess it's politically correct to do that. He'll turn 58 years of age December 21st. Ladies and gentlemen, his record as a head coach in 3 seasons with the St. Louis Rams at the time was 10-38. 10-38. His first year he was 1-15. His third year he was 2-14. In between he was 7-9. 10-38. That's something that New York is supposed to be looking forward to? You're the guy in charge of this Giants defense as we speak. This is Steve Spagnuolo. Now, granted, last year they were formidable. Number 3 against the rush. Number 2 in yards allowed. Fair enough. But this year, you rank dead last in yards allowed. 3rd worst in passing yards allowed. 27th defense. Why would I be thinking about you as a head coach? I'm sorry to Steve Spagnuolo, but I think it's necessary to say. I don't want to hear that name right now. I don't want to hear anything. I don't need a retread. I need something fresh. And when we talk about fresh, let's think about this, because this is a way to transition into college football. Because we got our Final Four teams. Got Clemson, number 1. Okay? You got Oklahoma, you got Alabama. Okay, we can't ignore them. And I'm just looking at it from my perspective, and I'm just saying to myself, hey, what's going to go on here? Who should be a next head coach? Should the New York Giants be looking to pluck a team from college? A coach, rather, from college. Is that something that should be entertained? I think it's necessary to ask yourself that question. Why not? Why not? That, to me, is what I'm thinking about right now, because I'm thinking about, guess what? If Nick Saban ends up winning the national championship again, it would be number 5 at Alabama. Because we got Clemson, Georgia, Oklahoma, and Alabama. Those are your Final 4. If Nick Saban wins another national title and ends up with 5, what else is there to prove at Alabama? What else is there? Talk about somebody that should want to make amends. Should want to make amends for what he did as a coach on the NFL level in Miami. That would be Nick Saban. Now, it depends what you want. Do you want stress or do you want comfort? If he wants to sweat, if he wants comfort and to live a long and fruitful and healthy life, might want to stay at Alabama because he don't have to worry about a damn thing. He doesn't have to worry about anything. But unless that's the case, if you're Nick Saban and you want to challenge, why not? Ladies and gentlemen, in 22 years as a college coach, Nick Saban is 221-62. That's a 78% winning percentage. At Alabama, he's 130-20 in 11 years. In 11 years, Nick Saban has lost 20 games. 11 years, he's lost 130-20. I'm the New York Giants. I'll look at him. I even like David Shaw out of Stanford. I like him too. Josh McDaniels, well, Nick's, Bill Belichick's proteges usually don't end up successful when they depart from him. But I'll take a chance with Nick Saban. Sean Payton, I think he's happy in New Orleans these days. John Gruden, very, very comfortable doing Monday Night Football. I don't know if he's ready for that life again. New York Post has something, Terrell Austin, Lions defensive coordinator? I'm not sold. Have you seen the Lions lately? I'm just saying. Not sold on that right now. Just not. Not to knock him. But if I want a head coach, it's going to be for a team with a better than 6-6 record. That's just me. It's going to be for a team that has a defense ranked higher than 26th. Not just in points allowed, but yards allowed. 27th against the pass. I need something better than that. I can't look at you as a defensive coordinator with numbers like that and think that you're ideal for a head coaching spot on my team. That's just me. Back to your calls in a minute. This is Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio.
Guess what? You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it!
To the phones we go. Right here on the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio. Let's get right to it. Charles in Jersey, you're live with Stephen A. What's up?
What's up, Stephen A? Listen,
right,
to me, the Giants are the only organization that has not started an African-American quarterback. They're the last ones left.
Well,
that's why they had to let Geno Smith and get it out of the way.
First of all, that's not to you. That's to all of us. That's a matter of fact. But go ahead.
That's why I feel they had to get that monkey off their back, if you ask me. I mean, they had to do that just so they. I mean, granted, who else had a quarterback that started 210 games?
Okay, we don't know, but I get your point. You're saying that Geno Smith started because it would be they were the only organization that never started an African American quarterback, so they wanted to make sure they got themselves out of that category, and that's why Geno Smith was inserted instead of Davis Webb. I got it. Go ahead.
I got it. That's it. And now going forward, Geno Smith won't be there next year. They'll have Webb. We'll get somebody in the second or third round. Hopefully, not the first round, second or third round. And that'll be our future. To me, I think Eli will be back there next year for one more year.
We'll see. I appreciate the call, though. Thank you. Greg, you're live with Stephen A. Go ahead.
Hey, Stephen A. Couple of reasons that Nick Saban would never go to the Giants. First of all, he might still be in Miami if they had signed who he wanted to in a quarterback, Drew Brees, but they wouldn't. They gave him Dante Culpepper, so he said, hell, I'm leaving, going to Alabama. It's
Turns out to be the right
money.
decision on his part. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's not going to be the money because if they offered him $10 million, it'd take Alabama about 30 seconds to match or beat that. And he wants to be the greatest coach in college football ever, and to do that, he's got to win a few more championships.
No, stop. He has to win a few more. The man is 130-20 with 4 national titles on his resume. What do you mean he's got to win a few more? He ain't already recognized as arguably the greatest ever in collegiate football?
That to him, he wants to win more than the Bear did.
Okay. Appreciate the call. 866-729-3776. Your calls to close out the show in a minute. You're listening live to Stephen A. on ESPN Radio.
Guess what? You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it!
Back to the calls we go. Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio. Greg in Brooklyn, you're live with Stephen A. Talk to me.
Hey, what's going on, Stephen A?
I'm all right.
I have a problem with something that you said in regards to this Tom Brady and Gronkowski thing. Mm-hmm. I think first and foremost, if you look at it, you can attribute frustration to Rob Gronkowski. I'm not saying it justifies it, but I'm just saying you can rationalize that a little bit easier. Now, when you look at Tom Brady has consistently shown this lack of respect for his coaches, his coordinators.
Stop right there. No, sir. You cannot say, even though Tom Brady has done that consistently, and I get your point about that, you cannot justify a 260-pound man jumping on the back of somebody's neck with his elbow because you're upset.
I'm not saying that was right, but what I'm saying is...
Stop. I know you're not saying it's right. What you're saying is that's an impulsive reaction on the part of Rob Gronkowski, whereas Tom Brady has shown consistency in doing what he's been doing. I'm saying to you, even the consistency of Tom Brady's temper tantrums does not measure up to a 260-pound tight end jumping on the back of somebody's neck with his elbow because he got tired of being held.
Okay, hold on. Another thing. Can I just make a second point real quick?
Go ahead.
I think you're wrong with your comparison, the Eli no trade as compared to Carmelo. The organization had no power they have no power in Eli's situation because at the end of the year, they owe him money. They're not going to keep him with the dead money, so they know they have to get rid of him. And he knows that, so he knows they'll release him or send him to the team he wants. The Knicks were unwilling to release Carmelo. Therefore, Carmelo had all the power in that situation to determine.
So I don't disagree. I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you there. I was just making the point that when somebody has a no trade clause, you need cooperation from the team, not just the player. The player, yes, but you also need cooperation from the team. That's all I was trying to. I was just explaining theoretically what goes into the potency of a no trade clause.
Why isn't Eli held more culpable in the way that this was handled?
That's a story for another day. You told me 2 questions. I gave them to you. Have a nice day. Eli Manning has been sticking up the joint. He hasn't been himself. Everyone has said that. The issue is that Geno Smith shouldn't be the one succeeding him. Nobody's tried to absolve Eli for how he's looked this year. Ross, you're live with Stephen A. What's up?
All right. First, I want to say I love what I saw from the Seahawks last night. I believe they're going to win the division and keep the streak of
You think they're going to catch?
one
You think
playoff
they're going to
game
catch the Rams?
this year.
You think they're going to catch the Rams and beat the Rams?
Oh yeah, they already got.
Okay.
You know, if they beat Jacksonville, they got another heads up. And if Philly beats L.A. next weekend.
And you think Philly's going to beat L.A. And you think Philly's going to beat L.A.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. What's your other point?
All right. Now the Rob Gronkowski thing. My question is, when you say things like y'all or everybody has an issue with Cam compared to Brady, I don't do social media. I hate it. I think it does more harm than good. Who are you talking about?
I'm talking about the vast majority of people we see commenting, whether it be the media or Joe Public. If Cam Newton were to act the way that Tom Brady acted on the sideline, you would see an entirely different reaction. Of course, there are exceptions to every rule. Of course, that doesn't mean every single human being. I don't mean it to be absorbed literally like that. There's exceptions to everything. Black folks was marching for civil rights. Guess what? There were a lot of white folks that stepped up and helped them. Okay, so when somebody sits up there and says, when somebody says white America has been was against civil rights at a particular moment in time, you don't mean every single white person in America. You just mean by and large.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know. It's mostly these morons on social media is the way I see it. And I just cannot stand it. It's too much of it.
Trust me, my opinions isn't based on folks on social media. That I can promise you. But I appreciate the call. Thank you so much. Let's go to Rob in New York. You're live, Stephen A. What's up?
Hey, Stephen A. Thanks for taking my call. I love your show.
Thank you.
I want to talk.
Rob, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Go ahead. I can hear you now. Go ahead, buddy, real quick.
Great. I want to talk about Gronk and Crabtree and Talib. First, I just want to compliment you because I listened last week when you talked about Crabtree and Talib. I agree with everything you said. I had the same reaction when it happened, which is, man, they're giving ammunition to the wrong people. And, you know, as you said at the time, it's too bad we can't talk about social justice issues on their own, but we can't. And sports has always been a lens for that. You do a great job. When people attack you, I know they do from both sides, say you shouldn't mix the two. They don't understand the history of Jackie Robinson, Mexico City, Muhammad Ali, the list goes on. But back to Gronk for a second. I think he should get 2 games. I'm a Patriots fan. I think he should be out for 2 games. And I think tie that in with the punishment for Crabtree and Talib. You know, I think anyone who after a whistle fights or injures or intends to injure another player should be out for 2 games. I think it's a great precedent. But I have a question for you. Does the Players Association have any ability to discipline people on their own?
No.
I think in both these cases, and they should.
No, that's not true. That's not true. You don't want the union to be in the business of exacting retribution and punishment to players. That's what the league is for. You want a union that's going to represent and fight for the players on their behalf. I totally disagree with that. And in terms of Gronk, I think he deserves 3 games because Crabtree and Aqib Talib weren't defenseless. They were going at each other. In the case of Gronkowski, the guy was laying on the ground face down, had no idea that Gronkowski was behind him, ready to do something like that. And Gronkowski, you know, dropped 260 pounds on the back of his neck with his elbow, led by his elbow. I think that's entirely more egregious, and I think that warrants more of a suspension than Aqib Talib and Michael Crabtree got.
Well, that's fair. We disagree on the NFLPA thing just because, you know, you said it last week that they are ambassadors for their
What union? Don't give me that, sir. What union do you know punishes its employees?
Oh, a lot of unions have discipline functions. Absolutely.
No. I understand functions that are built in the CBA, where the players collectively bargain and collectively come to a conclusion and agree on something. I'm talking about a union sitting there and arbitrarily deciding, well, you are going to get this punishment while you might get that punishment. I'm not aware of any union that does that.
Well, I think it should be part of the collective bargaining agreement because they've got a brand. They're a big part of the brand. And like you say, when someone does something stupid,
there's culpability. There's culpability that they should have, and I appreciate the call, Rob. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. I get your point in terms of they should have participation, no doubt about it. I absolutely emphatically agree with that. But for them to be judge, jury, executioner, meaning serving the role of Roger Goodell, that's counter to what a union is supposed to be all about. And I certainly don't support that. But we can talk about that and then some tomorrow. We'll get into a lot of different things tomorrow. Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, 22 hours away. Peace and love.
That's just a sample of what you'll hear on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern on Sirius XM Channel 80 and the